Hey guys, what's up? Alex Raleigh here. I'm outside the Hustler where I'm going to be doing live commentary about my previous session. Then I'm going to be taking your questions. And afterwards, I'm going to be playing on the stream. And of course, in this vlog, I will break down all of the most interesting hands step by step in the hand of the day. Super excited for this. Let's dive in. All right, this is the booth where we play the Hustler game. It's amazing how good the quality of the cameras are. They're so inconspicuous. You can see they're like super small back there. And so this is where I'm doing the pregame show, and I'll be taking your questions soon. Thanks for joining me here today. We're doing some new experiential content here at the Hustler. I'm your pregame host. That's it. Let's dive in so we can get through these. Thanks for joining me. We're here for the first segment. Appreciate you guys coming back.
What are you eating, baby?
Pre-game, bite of everything. Salmon and vegetables.
All right, I changed, took a 5-minute break. I literally had 2 hours plus of back-to-back commentary, so just a little drained. Took a break, grabbed a power bar. I'm going back, grabbed chips, and let's go on the stream. All right, this is very early into the stream, so assume no history, no reads. And Henry opens to 300 in the cutoff. I make it 1,000 on the button. This is obviously a looser re-raise from me. I think the book might just say to fold here, but facing a raise on the cutoff and being quite deep, I decide to 3-bet, apply pressure right away, kind of open up my game. Henry opts to call here out of position with 4s, which I think is pretty standard. And we're going to take a flop heads up. Pot's 2,300, and the flop comes down 6-5-5 with a flush draw. He checks, and I make a pretty standard c-bet here. I think this board is just better for me. I have stronger hands than him because I'm the re-raiser, so I have all of the big pairs. He doesn't really have those hands because he's probably going to 4-bet a lot of those pre-flop. So just this basic dynamic of whose hand is stronger leads me to opt to bet. I go for 800, a small size. That allows me to bet more hands profitably and keep the types of hands I have wider, which is very good for me. Turn comes a jack. He now checks again, which I expect him to do with pretty much all of his hands. If he's check calling this flop, he's never really going to lead this turn because the jack is a better card for me than it is for him, simply because I'm going to be betting the flop with more hands that contain a jack, then he's going to be calling the flop with hands that contain a jack. My range is also stronger than his. Again, for the same dynamic that we discussed on the flop, I can have all the big pairs. He really can't. I can have more jacks than him. And so he's going to have a lot of weak pairs here. He's going to have a lot of like 6x hands or 7s, 8s, 9s, maybe 10s that didn't 4-bet. Again, very unlikely he has a jack. He has a lot of ace highs. All those hands are going to be under a lot of pressure. And frankly, probably going to want to fold a decent amount of the time here, especially because, yeah, sure, I'm bluffing some of the time with a stone cold bluff, or maybe I have a flush draw or something. But like, what's he going to do on the river with 7s? Like check call the turn, and then the river's like, a 10 or a queen or a king or an ace, and he's just going to guess on those rivers too. Like, it's a really tough spot with a small pair here. So I like to keep betting. I bet 2,500. I don't think I need to like overbet or anything. I could just bet the same size I would with, 10s or a jack or queens or kings or aces or a 5. All those hands are going to bet again. Anyway, he calls. He's not a believer at this point. And the river comes down, a pretty damn good card for me, an ace. I think it's much more likely I have an ace as a bluff than he has an ace as a call. Like, what types of aces does he have? Like, maybe ace queen that didn't 4-bet pre, or like, yeah, ace X of spades that didn't check raise the flop, sure. Or like maybe ace jack that miracled its way into like some backdoor 2-pair. But like, it's hard for him to call the turn with an ace high. He doesn't really have that many offsuit aces calling pre-flop. And so I could easily be bluffing with an ace, like ace 4, ace 3, ace deuce, ace queen, ace king, like ace jack, which I had, or ace 10. I could also still have, jacks and aces. And I think a 5 a little bit easier than him at this point. So he checks again. I can't really do much with queen 10 except bet. I mean, I have air. Most of the time I don't have air here. I'm not really getting out of line pre-flop here, and I'm also not double barreling that often. So like a lot of my air is going to give up on the flop or give up on the turn or not 3-bet pre-flop. So I think it's really unlikely I get to the river with a lot of air. And with this particular run out, these cards favor me a lot more than they favor him. I pretty much have to bet. So I go for it. I think it also puts fours in a very tough spot. If he has something like fours or, 6x or 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, those hands are all in a terrible spot facing a $6,000 bet into an $8,800 pot. Overall, I think I'm really happy with how I played this hand. I don't really think I had much choice like on the flop or on the turn or on the river. I think this hand just kind of played itself, even though it was pretty interesting, a 3-barrel bluff. He decides to then make a raise on the river to 16K. I don't really blame him. It's like he's not repping that much, but at the same time, like, it's not a spot where people bluff often, and it is a good raise, and it puts me in a tough spot. Unfortunately, I didn't even have a hand to consider it with because Henry's a superstar and he's probably watching. I'm not going to say what I would or wouldn't have done with different types of hands, but at the same time, I didn't really have a decision with queen 10 off, pretty much for the rest of my stack. I don't really have any options, so this hand sort of played itself. Kudos to Henry for, taking an aggressive line, making a good read, and pulling off a bluff here. He made it 16,000. I folded, and one up for Henry. On to the next one. All right, this next hand kicks off with Tal. Again, I have no reads. We're very early in the session. He opens to 300 in the hijack. We stop our conversation for a 3-bet to 1,000. This is my second time 3-betting. Last time it was clear I was bluffing, so maybe he thinks I'm getting out of line, a little weak. I mean, I 3-bet twice in a couple orbits, and it was, cut off to button, and now hijack to cutoff. Last time it was obvious I had air because I snap folded the river, and so maybe he thinks I'm up to something. I kind of felt like just watching him in this spot, in this moment, he was likely to be a little bit frisky. He makes it 4,300 here. And if I was a little bit less deep, like maybe jamming is just the best play to deny him the chance of seeing the flop. Like if I have 15K, maybe it's better just to jam. 23K is a little bit deep. It's not quite 200 big blinds because there's an ante, so the size of the pot is quite a bit bigger. And so it's not actually like 200 big blinds that I have effectively given the size of the pot. But still, it's a decent jam. I think that's an option here. I really think folding is fine too. Like, frankly, if you're up against a tight player or you have a read that they're very, very strong pre, 10s is definitely a tough hand to play post-flop. There's a lot of times where there's going to be an overcard and your opponent has the lead and they're going to be applying pressure. So if the board comes, king 7-4, they have the lead, they're going to be betting that board. Then what do you do, right? It's a very tough spot to play. And so I feel like some people just decide to jam here pre-flop because it like simplifies their decision-making process and it prevents them from like making a mistake post-flop or folding the best hand. But I feel confident in my game. I think I'm a very experienced player and I love deep stack, high stakes live cash games. And so like me keeping my position in the hand and allowing myself to get more information, play the pot in position, and get better reads on my opponent and figure out how to navigate through this hand is something that I think is my strength. So I don't mind putting myself in these tough spots. They are higher variance, but that's how I play my game. So I opt to call here. I'm going to be calling with, I think, a very evenly balanced sort of range. I'm going to be trapping here with aces sometimes. I'm going to be calling with ace queen suited sometimes. I'm going to be calling maybe with some weaker hands some of the time, depending on my read or the player or the stack sizes. So I think calling here is a very evenly balanced play from me, and it makes me a lot harder to play against. Flop comes down gin for me, 10-7-6. I think a lot of times, okay, so let's not get results oriented, meaning let's not play the hand knowing the fact that he has the nut flush draw. Let's play the hand not knowing what he has, because frankly, in the moment, I have no idea what he has. And I'm trying to play to maximize my opportunity against all the types of hands he can have. And it's really important to make that distinction and not only base your analysis on the results. A lot of the time here, he's drawing, frankly, just dead on the flop. Like if he has ace king with one heart, I don't consider that dead, but it's pretty close to dead. Ace king with no heart is pretty much dead. Kings with no heart is pretty much dead. They have 2 outs and no limit hold'em. That's the best you're pretty much ever going to get. So I'm not really worried at this point when he goes ahead and c-bets this flop. It's a 4-bet pot, mind you. It's very hard to have a flush draw, in a 4-bet pot, right? You have to have 3-bet, you have to have 4-bet pre-flop with a suited hand that's a bluff. And so the only really hands that do that are ace X suited, maybe ace king suited for value, but it's not going to be, king 8 suited unless he's just completely on a stone bluff. It's just there's not that many heart draws he can have, especially because the 10 and the 7 are on the board. Those remove some of his heart combos. So I think a lot of hands like queen jack of hearts or king jack of hearts or king queen of hearts are just going to call a 3-bet preflop. So it's very hard for him to have hearts here. And it's also very hard for him to have an 8 or a 9. So people are like, oh, a straight card could come, but he 4-bet to $4,300 preflop. It's hard to have an 8 in your hand, right? So a lot of his cards here are just drawing dead. Big cards, ace queen, ace king, ace jack, no equity pretty much. overpairs, very little equity too. But again, my read preflop was that he was weak, so I wanted to keep his bluffs in the pot and let a queen roll off or a king roll off or an ace roll off and let him pick up some equity or decide to keep bluffing. Like if he has ace jack and a king comes, he's going to rep the king, continue betting, and I could just get it all in on the turn. Again, our stacks are very short here. So if I call this flop, which I do, I call 3,000. You can see here the pot is now, I call pretty quick here, as well. And the pot is now 15,000. I have 16,000 behind. So if the turn is a king and he jams with ace queen or ace jack, like he's all in and I'm just going to call. So like I like trapping here because I think a lot of turns are just going to, allow him to keep his bluffs and keep piling money in the pot when I thought he was weak. And, I think my read was right here, pre-flop, that he was weak. Turn comes an ace, which is sort of a weird card that changes things because when he checks here on this turn and it's an ace, this is where the hand is like kind of spicy. I mean, I think a lot of times, like if he had an ace, like let's say he has ace queen, why would he check this turn? Like there's a lot of draws out there. I can easily have like jacks or queens or kings or like nines maybe or eights or like 10 jack suited or 10-9 suited or 7-8 suited or pocket eights or pocket nines. Like a lot of those hands are just weak hands that an ace is ahead of. I have one pot size bet left. What's he going to do with an ace? Check fold. So like why wouldn't he just jam here with an ace? Like even if I have a flush draw, like maybe I call it off with, a combo draw, like, or maybe I don't believe him and I call it off with, a pair and a gut shot or something like that. Like, I don't know. I just feel like an ace would jam here. So when he checks here, I kind of feel like he just has air and he's giving up, like maybe king jack offsuit or king queen or something like that with, again, pretty much no equity, maybe drawing to 4 outs. Or he has something like, maybe I'm wrong and he has something like jacks or queens or kings. Again, like those hands don't have any equity. All those hands are not going to call me if I bet the turn. And my really only bet is all in. I'm not going to bet 9,000 with 6,000 behind. Like I either basically shove or I check. So I opted to check, again, keep his bluffs in the pot. A lot of rivers, when I check, if he has king queen and I check behind and the river's a deuce, maybe he goes all in, tries to rep the ace, right? I could just snap call with tens. So the river's an 8 of hearts, which seems like a terrible river for me. Again, obviously he has a flush draw, and against his specific hand, sure, I should have just jammed the turn because he's going to call and I force him to put his money in the pot when he's drawing very slim. But again, I don't know he has ace deuce of hearts. I'm thinking about all the types of hands he can have. So the river comes in 8 of hearts. Obviously, an interesting card for me. It seems like a terrible card for me because all the draws got there. But again, how can he have a flush draw? Like if he had a flush draw, okay, so now he jams all in on the river. If he had a flush draw, he's going to jam the turn. Like you got to think, he's in a 4-bet pot. He bets the flop. The turn comes an ace. He has the lead in the hand. He has one pot size bet left. What's he going to do with king queen of hearts? Check fold? Like check call? He's never doing that. So I don't even think a flush is in his range. I literally don't think he ever has a flush here. It doesn't even make sense unless he has specifically the nut flush draw. And if he does, Merry Christmas. Like, it's a risk I'm willing to take. So I think it's possible he has the nut flush draw, but I think a lot of his nut flush draws just bet the turn. So I actually don't think that I'm even getting it in behind here that often. And again, all the rest of his flush draws are just going to jam on the ace, trying to rep the ace to get me to fold whatever random hand I have. A 9 is possible. Like maybe he has, like 9-8 suited, definitely not. He's jamming the turn, but maybe he has like jack 9 suited or something, or like 9-7 suited, and he just was like up to no good preflop, or like king 9 suited or something. That's possible. Sure, I'm not going to like rule that out, but again, we're in a 4-bet pot. I have one one pot size bet left. Like I beat all his bluffs. I set him up for this to trap. I read him as weak pre. Like he jams the river. This is what I wanted. It's not my favorite card. I would love if the board paired, but I don't think in poker you can wait for the nuts. I'm happy to call it off here. I don't really. I could have played it different, and knowing his specific hand, that would have been more ideal. But again, I think playing my long-term strategy against all the types of hands he can have, I'm happy with my play here. It didn't work out this time, and that's unfortunate. Nice hand tall. He got the best of me. Deserves the pot, and we're on to the next one. All right, next hand kicks off. Tan, who'd been playing tight and solid, opens under the gun to 300 with ace-9 suited. Sammy the Bull calls +1. So I feel like people are not up to no good here. Like they probably have something strong for Tan to raise under the gun and Sammy to call to his immediate left. So with 9s on the button, I decided to get a little more passive here and flat and just take my position, keep my position in the hand. That's great. I love playing pots in position. We're deep stacked. That's like the best thing for me, I think. So flop comes 8-4 deuce. Great flop for me. Obviously, Tan leads out 500 and Sammy folds. I think here I could maybe opt to raise just to force him to fold like 2 overcards. That's an option. I just elect to just call. Again, keep my position, not open the door for him to 3-bet or to float. and build a big pot with a marginal hand. Again, I think it could go both ways here, but I just opt to call this time. Turn comes down ace of hearts, and over to Tan. The pot is 2175. Tan had been playing pretty solid, so I'm not happy with this turn of the ace. Obviously, it hits him a lot, but when he bets out 700 into 2200, I'm getting a really good price. Like, I am getting 3-1 here, so maybe he's bluffing some of the time, and I have the best hand, and maybe there's some options for me to win the pot on the river, which we'll see. So the river comes on 3 of hearts, which frankly is a pretty good card for me. I think when he checks this river, which he's going to do a lot of the time, pot's 3,500. If he has an ace, like ace jack or whatever, like this is a terrible run out. Like I call the flop, I call the turn. I could definitely have some 5s in my hand. I could have some 5-6s or, double gutted. I could have some backdoor hearts that flow to the flop. And then now I picked up hearts, but it's really hard for me to have a bluff. Like what bluffs do I have here? I mean, I just, a lot of the times I don't even call the turn with 9s. I think this is kind of, the most questionable spot in the hand is even calling the turn with 9s. And so it's like really hard for me to be bluffing. And I go for a big bet here on the river. I think the types of hands I'm betting here on the river is very polar. It means I either have the nuts or I have nothing. I'm not really betting, ace 10. I'm not betting like ace jack. I'm not betting an 8. So I'm either betting like maybe a set. I'm definitely going to bet a set, but I'm betting like 2 pair. Probably I'm going to bet 2 pair as well, but I'm basically betting 2 pair or a bluff or better. So I don't really need to bet small here. I also want to apply a lot of pressure on an ace. It really puts him in a terrible spot if he has an ace. And frankly, yes, I was bluffing this time, but I actually think Tan made a good fold. I bet 6,000 into 3,500. You have 1 pair on this run out when I call twice in a multi-way pot. Like, this is not a winning call, and he made the right fold, and I happen to be bluffing, which frankly is why I think it was a good bluff. So anyway, this worked out for me. And yeah, I had a heart in my hand too, which made it a little bit nicer to pull the trigger, and climbing back up. All right, this next hand, pick up my favorite hand, 2 10s. I'm in the cutoff. I make it 500. One thing that's important in poker games is not to get affected by the results, not to let it get to your head. I talked about this in the pregame show, so if you didn't watch that, there's an hour-long commentary of me in the pregame show just answering your guys' questions. And I really talk about bankroll management and emotional mastery, which are the 2 most important things in poker, I think, like to be a successful poker player long term. Also, if you want more about this, to turn poker into a profitable business, achieve emotional mastery, be your best self at the table, and ultimately like build a solid plan to win long term at poker, I'm putting together a free masterclass. You can click the link in the description below and join. It's an hour long, and you'll be able to ask me anything during the masterclass as well. Questions on poker or any way I could be a resource to you and help you on your poker journey. It's limited to 30 people that join, so it's by application only. You can apply at the link below. It's not for micro stakes players, so make sure you're playing 2-5, no limit, or have a 10K bankroll, something like in that range to qualify for the masterclass. And click the link in the description below to join. Also, while we're here, head over to consciouspoker.com, and opt into our newsletter. We put out all our, some of our best content there for free. You'll get updated when I make these new vlogs. We also have a weekly newsletter to help you with new strategies on your poker game to take your game to the next level. And you'll also get access to my free hand reading system. This is the exact process. If you like my strategy breakdown, this is the exact process I use in every hand I play to break down how I think through every hand, and it's the exact mental framework that I go through in every hand I play that I also teach to clients and students. It's all free at consciouspoker.com. All right, so anyway, back to 10s. I raised to 500, and Henry is in the big blind. The straddle, I should say. I consider that the big blind. He's in the last blind. He opts to call. Flop comes down 8-4-3. Rainbow, very good flop for me, I think. When you have an overpair and you have 10s and you're facing the big blind who's defending with a lot of hands, this is pretty much as good as it gets, right? Pot's 1,300, he checks. I'm going to be betting this board pretty much always, so I bet 400, which allows me to bet with more hands because I'm choosing a smaller sizing, getting a better risk reward. Turn comes to 7 and he checks. I think a lot of people here get a little bit nervous, like, 8-7 got there or the straight got there. I'm going to check behind. But the real problem with that is when you check behind with your overpairs, what are you betting on this turn? Like, you're only betting what? Bluffs? Like 9-10 or a flush draw? Like, if you're not betting over pairs, you're not value betting often enough. And yeah, you might get check raised some of the time. Maybe he's going to check raise me with, a 4-5, or maybe he has a straight and he's going to check raise me, or a set. I'll figure it out. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But like, I have an overpair. I have a strong hand. I don't care if I'm losing in the session. I care about what is the best way long term to play this individual hand. And I'm not worried about being in a tough spot. And I think that's a really important threshold to cross, is like, focus on playing your hand the best way possible, not avoiding disaster at all costs. Like, risk minimization is not necessarily the best strategy in poker. It's about maximizing expectation. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I have 2 10s. I have an overpair. Like, he's in the big blind. He can have anything. I'm betting again. Like, fuck it, let's go. So he checks, I bet 1,200. And this is a pretty even bet for me. Like, I'm going to be betting this board with bluffs. I'm going to be betting with over pairs. I'm going to be betting with two pair. I'm going to be betting with straight, betting with set. It puts him in a tough spot. He has ace high. He calls again. Doesn't believe me. Anyway, won't analyze his call too much because I know he's watching. He's a very good player, so he doesn't need any more strategy from me. He checks, and over to me, I decide to make a big bet. Why? Well, I'm not repping that many hands when I bet this river. This is kind of a dry run out in the sense that, like, I either, when I bet the flop, bet the turn, bet the river, I either have an overpair or better or nothing. Like, I don't really have many hands in between. Maybe I have ace 8 that's betting 3 times, probably. But I'm not betting, like, that many weak hands here. I'm not betting 8-9s, probably too thin. And so I either am basically representing, like, a big pair or better, or I'm bluffing. And all the draws missed, right? Like, 10-9 missed, Jack-10, Jack-9, like, flush draws missed, maybe ace-5 missed, ace-deuce missed, like all the draws missed, right? Any random bluff, maybe I'm just going for it with king-queen and I just like don't believe him and I just am betting. Like any bluff did not get there. So in a spot like this where there's a lot of bluffs that you can have and not a lot of value, like it's pretty hard to make a big pair in No Limit Hold'em. There's a lot more bluffs than there are big pairs. And you're only repping very strong hands or very weak hands, you don't really want to be betting small because you make it very easy for your opponent, who probably has a weak bluff catcher like an 8, just to call you on the river because most of your range is a bluff. They're getting a good price and it's you bet small, so you're giving them an even better price. They're just going to call you and win long term against you, and that's not good. So I have other reasons why I decided to bet big here too that I can't talk about, but basically the pot's 4,500 and I bet 6,200. I have other reasons why I bet big here too that I can't really talk about. Henry thinks for a while with ace queen. He ultimately doesn't believe me and makes the call. And one up for me, Henry and I. We're even, buddy. All right, quick check-in. I was down about 40K. Now at this point, I'm down 17,325. So I'm actually down, but I feel like I'm winning. It's the opposite of being up stuck. Like when you're up a lot and then you end up losing. Now I was down a lot and I ended up winning back. So I feel like I have momentum. I feel like I'm playing really well at this point. I actually, analyzing all these hands, I really don't think I made mistakes so far at this point in the session. And I have a lot in front of me because I kept, rebuying whatever. I'm in probably 60,000 or something like that. And, I have 50,000 in front of me. Anyway, sorry about that. So Sammy opens to +1. He had just doubled up the hand before. He has 40K, opens early position. He plays pretty tight. I 3-bet here to 1,000. We're very, very deep. And I had other reasons for it. Again, I'm sorry that I would love to tell you guys more, but obviously I have, there's a lot of incentive for me to have an edge and play my best and win. And so I can't exactly say all my reads on all these players and why I do very specific nuanced things. What I can say is that I take every hand at face value and every hand I adjust differently. So I'm not really too worried about giving away my general thought process because my thought process that I'm analyzing with you guys is more theory based. It's more just this is how to think about the game of poker independent of my personal strategy. So that's why I'm separating myself as, an analyst and a coach and helping others on their poker journey just by analyzing hands and making people better and more conscious at thinking about the game of poker versus my specific micro nuanced reads and why I do specific things in real time against specific players. That I will never share. That's priceless. I'm never going to share that information just because I'm playing high stakes poker for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can't just go tell you why in this hand I did something very specific against this one player. That's just never going to happen. But I can just say in general, this is not a book 3-bet. That's obvious. And hopefully you know that, or I know that at this point. I make a 3-bet to 1,000. Sammy makes a 4-bet to 3,000. And I opt to call. I'm getting a really good price. I mean, I could talk about this part. He makes it 3,000. I'm calling 2,000 and the pot is going to be 4,500 or something. So I'm getting 2 or 3 to 1 pre-flop. It's pretty standard call in position when we're super, super deep. It's actually not bad for me if he has a big hand because my hand is either going to out flop a big hand or outplay a big hand, or I'm just not going to be in the pot. So I don't think this is a spot where I'm going to flop a 6 and get stacked with top pair. No, it's not what I'm looking for with 9-6, right? So anyway, Sammy bets 2K on the flop and I'm getting a really good price here. I mean, I have 56% chance of winning. Actually, I'm a favorite to win the hand at this point, but I'm also just getting an amazing price. Even if he has aces, I'm getting the right price here. He bet 2K into 6K. I'm getting 4 to 1 or 3 to 1. And this is a pretty easy call. Just taking my time here in the spot, want to be even with how I play my hands. I might be trapping here. I might have aces. I might have a set. I'm just going to be calling this flop a lot. And I think that's a very evenly played strategy for me that doesn't really give away too much about the strength of my hand. Pot's a little over 10,000, and my equity going down. Obviously, I'm not in as good a shape against ace king. I'm not in as good a shape against aces either, because I didn't hit any back doors. There was no like 8 or 5 or 6 or 9 or 10, any cards that give me a little bit more equity. He bet 6,000, and this is kind of like not my favorite turn and not my favorite spot, but I'm still getting a really good price. Like it like people are like, oh, well, you're calling the turn with 9 high. Like, dude, it's just about math. Like the pot is 16,000. I'm calling 6,000, so I'm getting 2.5 to 1, which means I need to be right 1 out of 3.5 times, which means I need about like 30% equity. I have 34%. So like, even if he shows me his hand, I call, and like I only play my hand to hit a diamond or like maybe a pair on the river if it goes check, check. Like, I'm getting the right price. Like, this is a profitable call just based on my hand versus his hand versus the pot odds. It's pretty straight math. It's pretty simple. It looks stupid calling with 9 high here, but if you run the math, I think it's the right call. Plus, you also have to consider, like, if a diamond comes and he has aces, like, what's he going to do? Check fold? No, he's not going to check fold. I'm going to win a pot. I'm going to win a bet. Like, he's going to check call or bet and then fold to a jam, or like, I'm going to win some money. So there's opportunity for me here on the river too. There's also opportunity for me to outplay as well, which you can always do in position if you have more information. So anyway, the river comes a deuce. He checks, and you can see here Tuckman debating about what to do, and that's kind of what was going through my mind. Tuckman saying here, like, the commentator, like, you kind of have to bluff because you have nothing, but you can't really bluff because it looks like you kind of have nothing. I ran the math. I talked with friends. I thought a lot about this hand. There's a lot of nuances here that, I really can't share just because Sammy's good enough. You guys are all good enough that are watching the stream. I love you all, but, business is business. And basically, I think betting here is very reasonable. I think I'm going to have some strong hands here that I can bet with as well. And I also think that Sammy's in a very tough spot with ace king. I think ace king is probably going to fold. But the problem with betting here is if Sammy was trapping with like ace queen or any queen or like kings or aces, those hands probably aren't going to fold at this point, right? The board paired. And so those hands are in pretty good shape. Like, yeah, they lose to a set, but he might look me up. And so I kind of leveled myself here. I should have probably bet this hand. Obviously, in retrospect, I acknowledge I should have bet this hand. And this was something that probably would have won me the pot. But I kind of leveled myself in this hand, and I wish there was more that I could share. Really, really, I do. But I did lose this pot. Congrats to Sammy. He won on himself a nice pot, and this was probably the hand that, looking back on the stream, was the one hand that is really stuck with me. And I think, I don't want to say I played perfect, but like the one hand that I think I maybe made a mistake on, and that's kind of sat with me that I'm still digesting. And you'll see my raw thoughts after this as well. But this is the one hand that I'm kind of like, what if? I just have that what if question. And that's always a frustrating thing in poker because, a lot of times it's better just to go with it and not wonder, So anyway, well done, Sammy. And he got me. All right, guys, thanks for your attention. Be sure to subscribe to ConsciousPoker.com for awesome content, and my YouTube. I'm putting out a lot of vlogs here about my experience on The Hustler. I will be back in the future. I'm also hosting meetup games in LA like I did in my last vlogs when I went to Vegas. So head over to ConsciousPoker.com, subscribe to our newsletter. I'll send out a blast when I'm hosting a meetup game in LA. I'd love to meet and connect with you guys as well. That would be super, super fun, and I love meeting and connecting with people. So hit me up on social media at Alec Torelli. Subscribe to this channel. More awesome content's coming. Final statistics, my, I ended up being the biggest loser, like by a lot. It's actually pretty amazing how evenly distributed the results were. Like there weren't that many big swings in this game. Like in the past, some people win 100K, lose 100K. This is kind of a rather tighter game, a little bit more. There were some interesting spots, but overall it was a little bit tighter of a game and not as many swings. I actually swung a lot. I was like one of the players swinging the most, and that's kind of the nature of how the cards were dealt. But looking at the results here, you can see here on the screen, I'm down 46,600. Definitely the biggest loser in the game. Shout out to all those who voted for me losing that won a free Conscious Poker membership on my Twitter and Instagram. By the way, I do put out a promotion every time I play on the stream. I've been offering people who guess my results on my Twitter and my Instagram a free access to our Conscious Poker membership. It's a $1,000 product. It's one of our premier training products at Conscious Poker. It has a step-by-step system to build your game from the ground up. So whoever gets this right, shout out to you. I will be DMing you on Twitter and on Instagram. I did 2 giveaways. And, you guessed I would lose. I lost. I'm going to honor my commitment. And anyway, I got whacked this game. You will see my raw thoughts after this. I think after reviewing the hands, and like letting this settle, sleeping on it, running the math, talking to some friends and confidants in poker. I feel better about this stream than I did in the post segment, which you're going to see in a second. But I really want to leave that segment here and just let you see my raw thoughts, because it is a big ride. I did 2 hours of commentary before the game. I played all night on the stream. And you know, you're going to see my raw thoughts after this. So I'll leave that there. And thanks guys. You're awesome. My raw thoughts after the game before I review all of the hands. So you guys saw me reviewing all the hands, but this is me just coming home and telling you my thoughts. There's a few hands that I'm really curious about that could have gone either way. Obviously the 6-9 of diamonds and you know, the ace jack hand at the end, like just thinking about potentially shoving on the turn with the diamonds or shoving on the river with, or shoving on the flop with ace jack. And so it's always like one of those spots where what if, and all those things going through my head. And sometimes the things today didn't go my way. But ultimately, I think, you know, it's try to make the best decision I can with the information I have. And that's part of the fun challenge of poker. So I'm excited to review. I have a lot of spots I want to study and look over, chat with friends, and run through the math on. And yeah, total, I lost 47,000. So obviously not like my favorite result. But I did have a lot of fun, and I did feel like I was like really focused during the game. Like that I'm really proud of. I was really in the zone. I kept my head in the game, and I kept fighting the whole time. I kept my aggression up, even though a lot of spots didn't go my way, and I think that's a winning strategy over time. So I'm excited to get back in the Hustler. Hopefully I get back very soon, so stay tuned to the channel. And I think I'll be, you know, improving with each session, and that's part of the fun, challenge, humbling part of always staying sharp in poker. So. All right, I know this is crazy. It's 11:42. I just reviewed all the hands from the stream and answered a bunch of your DMs, and now I'm actually just got a call to go to a private game, so I'm going to be going to play some high stakes poker. It's midnight, but I'm fired up, and this is the poker life.